Strategic Analyst and retired four-star General Jack Keane. General, great to see you. So it appears the conditions are getting optimal. The ground is frozen. They needed a frozen ground for the tanks. Is there anything that can stop this from happening?
Well, first of all, we don't know what's going to happen yet. Right now, two things are taking place. Putin is still in preparation. He's moving troops into Belarus. He's got them coming on trains as far away as Siberia. There's rehearsals taking place. Ammunition is coming forward. Logistics are coming forward. So there's still a preparation phase, but there's also a diplomatic phase that's taking place, David. And Blinken and Lavrov, we have decided to respond in writing to their proposals. Initially, we were stiff on that. And likely there will be some discussion after that. So there's still a possibility that Putin will not cross that border, that he will get some kind of concessions that will be enough for him. It's unlikely, but I just want to, underscore that's the phase that we're in. A couple of other things to note. Weather's always a factor in military operations. Yeah. You noted the ground is frozen, but the Olympics are beginning on 4 Feb. And Putin is attending the Olympics. I doubt seriously he can conduct an all-out invasion into Ukraine during the 2 weeks of those Olympics, which would take away the huge propaganda victory that President Xi wants. And obviously, Xi and Putin have a relationship. The other thing is whether the ground will thaw. It's predicted in mid-March. Now, they can conduct operations in the mud, but they would rather not. So I think we still have some time here, but make no mistake, Putin's got 125, 130,000 by now that are clearly there, and that is very significant. And I don't think the strategy we have is flawed. We moved away from doing anything preemptively to deter Russia from conducting the attack. What our strategy is, we're going to wait for the attack to take place, and we're threatening dire consequences if the attack takes place. We're trying to deter the attack based on the consequences that we're going to impose on them.
That's crazy.
And I think that's very limited.
Well, we gave up our biggest bargaining chip right in the beginning of the Biden administration by removing those sanctions on the pipeline. But what kind of diplomatic offers could we make that would dissuade Putin after he's gone to all of this trouble and expense at mounting all these troops at the border?
Well, his outrageous proposals, no expansion of NATO, and move all the troops in NATO eastern countries that have joined NATO since the collapse of the Soviet Union, move NATO forces out of there. That's preposterous. That's not going to happen. But missile location, offensive missiles in those countries, military exercises, the intermediate nuclear weapons that Russia violated the treaty and then we pulled out of it. It's quite rich that Putin has put that on the table for discussion. Would that deter him from conducting an invasion? I doubt it. But nonetheless, those are things that we can talk about.
And again, whenever we can, if there's any way to talk our way out of this, it'd be great, because there are a lot of families like mine that have folks in the military, and we don't want to be drawn into a conflict. I mean, that would be the worst case scenario. But there's also a question about our allies, General. Germany in particular. Over the weekend, they refused Estonia's request to send some artillery to Ukraine. This was something that Germany was able to hold back on, and they did. Some people wonder whether it's gone so far that Germany has more in common now with Russia than they do with NATO. What is your feeling on this?
Well, you're putting your finger on one of the problems we have. We do not have unanimity on the economic sanctions. And Germany is a case in point. They've been mixed signals over whether they would refuse to activate Nord Stream 2. And also, France and other countries, if Russia shuts down the energy source, they provide 40% of the energy to the EU, natural gas, 50% to Germany. If they shut some of that down and those countries start to have economic impact, I don't think that they're going to stick and have the spine to stay with this thing. They'll probably fold their hand, to be quite frank about it. But listen, the United States has got huge opportunity here when it comes to economic sanctions. You know, the international financial system rides on the dollar. It also is using the SWIFT system in financially, internationally messaging and telecommunications, all the transactions that take place. We can take them out of that. And
We
that
can, but
would
didn't
be
the Germans
severe.
object to that as well?
We can do it unilaterally.
Okay.
We don't need
All right,
them,
that's good
and we
news.
don't need France.
Yeah,
That is the one thing that we can do, that we don't need them.
General, very quickly, there's a lot of other things popping around the world, too. We don't know what you mentioned China. We don't know whether they try to take advantage of instability in Europe to do something vis-a-vis Taiwan. We have Iran making some noises. We have the Houthis now shooting at our allies in the UAE. There's a lot of mess going on around the world. Do you think the Biden administration is up to handling it all at once?
Yeah, well, certainly what took place when Biden took over, things changed with our adversaries. They believed that they had an administration like Obama's that was appeased and accommodated more than confronted. And as a result of that, they began to get more aggressive. And then when Afghanistan took place, that actually has become an accelerant for China, for Iran, and obviously what we're seeing here for Russia. Look at Russia was on the border of Ukraine in the spring with close to 90,000. They came back in the fall. Why? I think the relationship to Afghanistan fiasco, weakness on the part of the United States, and Russia coming back is all tied.
Yeah.
So you're right. And listen, if this thing really goes bad in Ukraine and Russia takes control of it, Xi is going to look at that and say, well, the West is weak, they're not responding, and he's probably going to get considerably more aggressive and more confident about Taiwan.
It's incredible that they were saying, the critics of Donald Trump were saying this is the sort of chaos that would happen if he's president. It appears that it's happening now with a different president. Jack Keane, great to see you, General. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it.